we have some breaking Houston Texans news. First reported by Jordan Schultz, free agent offensive tackle Cam Robinson is signing with the Texans. Robinson started all 17 games last season, 7 with the Jaguars, traded to the Vikings, the last 10 in Minnesota. And continues Schultz, he will help stabilize the line for CJ Stroud. Per Diana Rossini of The Athletic, the deal is 1 year, worth between $12 and $14.5 million. Last I saw, Cam Robinson was supposedly asking for $15 million a year or so, and the Patriots walked away from the table. That's from Albert Breer when they saw that. As far as Cam Robinson goes, here are all the important notes. He was a second-round pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars in the 2017 NFL Draft. He was with Jacksonville until last year where he was traded. Not a lot given up in return for him, but he was on an expiring contract. The Vikings got him and a 2026 7th-round pick. Minnesota shipped off a conditional 2026 5th-round pick that upgrades to a 4th if Robinson has enough playtime, and Robinson had enough playtime. So a 29-year-old tackle who was traded for a 4th-round pick last year. And last year for the Vikings was part of an offense that did pretty well, but also was part of an offense that was under siege in the playoffs against the Los Angeles Rams. I went to Pro Football Focus to take a look at where he ranks statistically. And again, take it all with a grain of salt. I'm not someone who studies the film, but he ranks 56th out of 141 qualifying tackles overall, 49th in pass protection, and 75th in run blocking. Will he play left tackle? Will he play right tackle? That's the big question here, because the other news today for the Houston Texans is that they restructured Titus Howard's contract, saving them about $12 million against the cap. I think they brought the number down from 23 against the cap to 11 something against the cap. From what we heard, courtesy of Aaron Wilson from Channel 2 last week, the plan was for the Texans to move Titus Howard from right to left tackle. This definitely gives you another option. And as we have been saying for really the last couple of weeks, as we scratch our head at what the Texans have been doing on the offensive line, Sean, we just wanted them to sign a guy that we've heard of, and they have just signed a guy that they have heard of, and they are paying him starter money.
Yeah, that to me is the biggest thing, is that he is getting paid a contract that you think is a starting tackle in the league. Not one of the bad, not, Laremy Tunsil, but a starting tackle in the NFL. The interesting part is, like you said, Titus Howard's supposed to be the starting. They're prepared to start with him at left tackle. And in the 2024 draft, their second round pick was right tackle Blake Fisher, a guy who hasn't played anywhere else on the line. So I do wonder, does this mean that Titus Howard is moving to left guard? Does it mean that he's
good question,
no longer on the team? I think it's more likely that he's a guard.
Yes, I would think so here. But we'll see, because again, with Blake Fisher, what if Blake Fisher's not good going into his second year and the Texans think to themselves, you know what, we're going to put Titus Howard back at right tackle and we're going to try Blake Fisher on the interior, even though he's never done that before.
Or it's a year after they started the season with Kenyon Green at left guard saying, hey, we drafted this guy in the first round. We got to see. We got to at least roll into a season and just see how he handles it. He'll be the starter, and we'll have to live with the results. Maybe they learned their lesson. They're correcting from that, going, hey, if we don't think Blake Fisher is ready, let's not throw him out there just to throw him out there because we picked him in the second round.
Exactly. You can't force a guy into that role just because you drafted him there.
This year, Blake Fisher might just be a swing tackle.
Mm-hmm. And nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Now,
you'll probably need him at some point.
You will. You needed him this past season, and he came in, and there were some struggles. And look, his second year might be better. He finally got some NFL experience, but look, they needed bodies, and they needed bodies that were to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
Cam Robinson, I'm not going to act like he's a great player or anything like that, I wouldn't know, truly. Even to speak against that, I wouldn't know. But they need serious options on their offensive line. And to this point, they had not gotten any. Ed Ingram, who they traded for, late round draft pick, not it. Laken Tomlinson, not it. Bringing back Zach Thomas, not it. Jarrett Patterson, I mean, of all the guys that are returning on the interior, that's the one that I feel like has done the most. Juice Scruggs, not feeling great about to this point. Blake Fisher, complete unknown to me. I'm not going to say the guy is never going to be a good offensive lineman, but I mean, take a look at how the offensive line did while he was playing right tackle and they had moved Titus Howard over to left guard.
Yeah.
Didn't do so hot.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. It's, say what you want. They have tried to address this with the, meager means that they have to address these things with. But at the end of the day, it's better than with the two guards that they brought in with Tomlinson and with Ingram. But this is of the same level of just picking up new guys, reshaking the snow globe, and hoping that something else is better. That when all of it falls down, that you have a better offensive line than you did last year, and maybe that comes down to just, hey, Popovich is a better coach than
Cole Popovich.
Yeah, Cole Popovich is a better coach than Strasser is. Chris Strasser.
And that is the hope. I mean, a lot of this has felt like, hey, these coaches were just so bad last year. This year they're going to be better. And with Laremy Tunsil out of the building, there's going to be a little bit more urgency for these offensive linemen who are going to know, hey, just because you got a big contract or you're a former second round pick, that doesn't mean that we don't have massive expectations for you. So they bring in a former second round pick, a guy who we recognize. They're paying him serious money. And I don't know if I would agree with Siraj saying it's a huge signing. He is literally huge. He's 6'6". But I will say it's a signing that gives me a sigh of relief because they needed to bring in somebody that was actually serious to compete for whoever's going to be protecting CJ Stroud next year. I'm sure that they're going to draft somebody at some point, but you're putting a lot of pressure on a rookie, no matter what round they're drafted in, to throw them into this offensive line that last year had so many issues.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that the Texans made this move happen. And we'll see if there's any more. But this makes me feel like there's a little bit of a better plan going on the offensive line. Again, it's going to be a really uphill battle for them to fix it. But hey, it can't get much worse than it was last year. Some more comments. Battery Chucker suggests this just means they'll start Titus Howard at left guard. It might. It certainly might. I think Cam Robinson, primary left tackle, like that does stand to reason that, yeah, you move him to the interior or you move him back to right. Because I don't see why you would move Titus Howard back to left tackle when he hasn't played that since 2021. It just seems like you're asking for a lot for a guy who is playing on the other side. Apparently, you ask any offensive lineman, then changing sides on the offensive line, it is like learning to write with your other hand.
Yeah, because everything's just flipped of
right.
Your footwork, your handwork.
Exactly.
It's all flipped. And then you're moving into the interior too.
Yep.
Yeah, reacting to this live, I would assume Robinson left tackle, Howard left guard.
Yep.
Center, question mark. Maybe Juice or Jared Patterson. Juice Scruggs or Jared Patterson. Right guard, Tomlinson / draft pick. Right tackle, Fisher. Is just like how I'd guess
That's how it projects right now, right?
But this, I mean, again, just with how Titus can play, maybe he's right tackle, Fisher's a swing tackle. You now are looking for two guards.
Yep.
Or one of Thomas and Ingram. They still have a lot of options. Cam Robinson is the best offensive lineman that they've added this year.
Yes, by far. Not even close.
But at the end of the day, still not, he's not going to be Laremy Tunsil out there at left tackle.
Exactly. They signed him to a 1-year deal. Yeah. And I mean, the market, clearly, there was no one else offering a long-term deal. So there's some questions. I think he had a meniscus injury the other year, 2023. He did play all 17 games last season, so you at least have that going on. But you need somebody serious on the offensive line. This is a more serious option. More comments. HTX Rhino comments. No one on that offensive line should be guaranteed a job, and Caserio sucks at O-line picks. Yes, that is something to consider. And that's why I think they should be a little bit more aggressive right now, like trading for guys or signing established guys, right? Because, look, it's also, even if you are good at drafting offensive linemen, it's tough for offensive linemen when they first break in. And
it might be you draft a guy, he looks like the wrong guy in 2024 or in 2025, and in 2026 he's the right guy. It just takes time with this thing, like we're talking about with Blake Fisher.
J-Dog comments, the draft will probably know you what their plan is.
Yeah, they got to draft a guard or a lineman, probably an interior guy at this point with the Robinson signing.
Yes.
They got to get their first 2 picks.
Probably first 2 to 3 picks. I would like to see one, and definitely a wide receiver too. That's Sean Mason behind the glass. I'm Paul Gallant. We did scrap Washed Watch today because of this breaking news. In case you are just tuning in, the Houston Texans signed Cam Robinson, former Jaguar and former Viking left tackle, started all 17 games last year, to a 1-year deal, $12 million to $14.5 million.